Greetings, this is the Timeshare Traveler. This is episode 120. The Timeshare Challenge to Airbnb, or actually, really, it's the Airbnb challenge to timeshares. And I'm not going to go into great detail about prices. I'll do that in a later date. I'm just really going to cover this at a high level. So the overview I'm going to talk about is I'll talk about the threat that to timeshares, talk about the details about what's seen from the timeshare perspective, and then there's kind of an early pushback, which means really they're entering the market in different ways, and I'll talk about that, and then I'll go into details about that later, and just a brief overview on how timeshares and Airbnb differed. And then I'll do the analysis of what Hilton has started to do, what Marriott has started to do, with the WorldMark Wyndham has started to do, just our initial push. Before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my channel, and then I'm going to dive right into the details. Stay with me. Hi, this is Cliff, and I'm the Timeshare Traveler. Welcome to my channel. The purpose of my channel is to educate those who love traveling in timeshares. I've been an owner for 15 plus years at timeshare ownership. I have elite ownership with Marriott, Hilton, and WorldMark. I have published over 100 timeshare video reviews, and I've published over 95 timeshare tips. I can be found on Facebook at Timeshare Trav, at Twitter, Timeshare Trav, and on the web at www.timesharetraveler.com. Welcome back. Hey, here's the great news. Competition is great for the consumer. That's us. Airbnb is disruptive new technology. It's similar. I don't think it's like Uber or Lyft where it's going to replace taxis. Maybe some people would think so, but I don't think so, because I think the timeshares are getting in that business. I think it's going to be more like Netflix versus Apple versus Amazon. You can watch movies in multiple ways, or HBO, I guess, offers similar capabilities. The nice thing about in both cases, actually, the end user can book directly. Similar to a hotel booking store. And there's an interesting thing is the original kind of Airbnb actually was in the timeshare industry, where you could take your week and put it in an exchange, and you could exchange it for another week. It wasn't quite the same as renting it, but you could exchange. So it was interesting. It kind of evolved out of that, in my opinion. Anyway, so I don't know if it's really true, but it kind of seems that way. There's a nice thing in the Airbnb. What I really like is the ratings. I mean, I get the ratings on timeshares by looking at TripAdvisor, so I have a way around getting it. And there are some reviews, but it's not as big a thing in the timeshare industry. And I think that's because it's more captive, because you have to buy into it. But I will say it's favored by those under 40, and the timeshare people know that. And they know that they can't wait till their owners die off to figure this out. They need to figure this out. So this is really a healthy thing for the overall industry. I think it's great. Quality's uneven on the Airbnb side. I stayed at one place for a month because I wanted to get a low cost, but really the quality wasn't that good. And the thing that's challenging is, for me anyway, is I guess because I have more experience in the timeshare, the consistency of service, where it's really dependent on the person who actually owns the building. So when you actually get in the unit, sometimes you get good response, sometimes you don't. That's one of the things. And right now it's just kind of like, that's okay. We deal with that. The thing that's changing, though, I'm not sure how the prices are going to change over time, because it used to be, like I say, with Uber used to be cheaper than taxis. Now they're more in some cases, because they take advantage of busy pricing. But there are restrictions on Airbnb, like Napa, California, you cannot get a license for one. And in Hawaii now they're charging the hotel tax and all that kind of stuff. So they've raised effectively the cost it is to rent. But anyway, it's still kind of interesting for the consumers. We'll have to see how this evolves over time. So timeshares are very aware of the risks. Most timeshare presentations now include discussions on renting houses. I think it's amazing. I love that because I love the way the industry is challenging each of us. To everyone gets better. I think that's really good for us, the consumers. Timeshare homes, though, are typically higher end, and the systems to support rentals are similar to timeshare booking, so they do have an advantage. There's not a lot of infrastructure that they've had to add, and we can debate which one's easier, but it's just at a high level, it's similar. What's interesting is, in addition to that, timeshares are adding events, cruises to their portfolio. Well, they're trying to look at themselves as an overall destination. Again, it's kind of the Netflix where Airbnb is just the movie rental versus Apple rentals is part of, you can get songs, you can get this, you can get cruises, you can get it. So it's more a one-stop shop. So that's where my model. I think it's more like Netflix versus Apple movies and iTunes and applications and everything. So I think the timeshare people are trying to become those people. But they're playing catch up. And that was probably, if you look back when Netflix first launched, Apple was way behind, Amazon was way behind, but there is catching up. And once if you get Prime with Amazon, often it's easier just to stay with them on the movies. At least that's where I am. I have Prime, so I just added a little bit extra. Just as a background, even though I'm the timeshare traveler, I've stayed at an Airbnb for a month, and I've stayed for a week, and I've stayed for a night. I've used it not extensively, and I have an account, so I know it's not. I'm not talking about VRBO, which is also similar. I focus on Airbnb because it's the one I know. I will do a cost comparison at a later date. I just wanted to cover the basics right now because I'm fascinated on this, and it'll help me learn how to better use both Airbnb, and it'll help me learn how to use my timeshares. And just an FYI, some timeshare owners rent out their week on Airbnb or VRBO when they're not going to use it. So it's already been kind of cross-pollinated. It's part of the same industry. Just a quick background, just how they differed for those who might not know. Probably most of you know. It's hard to say. Some people know about timeshares. Some people only know about Airbnb. Timeshares, you pay up front to buy a set of points that you can use annually. It's roughly $30,000 for a one bedroom annually. 10 years ago it was $20,000, and you can buy them used. You do lose some benefits, but some people think it's worth it, and you can spend about $5,000 for that. And then you pay the annual maintenance fees. And I found as a general rule that just for those people who have Airbnb and are curious, the rental fees on a monthly Airbnb, and again, I have to do some more work to get an apples to apples comparison and quality wise, seem to be, if you do a monthly booking, it's comparable to a short term cost wise, but if you're doing a short-term stay, it tends to be higher than the maintenance fee equivalent. But you don't have to be the upfront. You don't have to pay upfront. So that may be perfect for many people. And so timeshares aren't right for everyone. And I'm not trying to sell you on timeshares. I just want to make it easier to use it if you have them or if you choose to have them. You can, again, Airbnb, you can rent by the day, by the week, by the month. I think you have to do multiple months. I think you can do it as much as you want. Again, fees are similar to hotels, but a wide range of properties. So it's a much more expansive opportunity, I think, than hotels. Okay, I'm going to talk about now all the initial offerings. I'm calling them initial because they're playing catch up of the three main brands, Hilton, Marriott, and Wyndham WorldMark. With purchase of Diamond International, Hilton now has Destination Exchange, and I was on there, and I was looking at homes I could book, and I could actually, what was interesting is I could book using my timeshare points. I could search by location. I would say that there's definitely limited availability versus Airbnb. Airbnb clearly has a lead in another maximum number of homes available. But again, it was mostly high end, but you could find some condos and so forth. So it was kind of an interesting play. It's something I might use my points for to go stay at a place. And there was a 3-bedroom place that I was looking at, which wasn't a lot more points than staying at a 3-bedroom timeshare. So I'm interested in doing some of that. Maybe I'll do some of that this next year because it's just a new opportunity for me. And again, here's an example: a 3-bedroom, 2,400 square foot home with views in San Diego of the ocean views, as well as, so that's pretty exclusive place. It was $3,000. If I use the equivalent of my maintenance points. So that works out to about $400, which is not that bad for a 2,400 square foot home. I think that would probably be more if you were doing that on Airbnb. But again, I'm not getting into the detailed pricing, but I wanted to give you an example of what Hilton's looking at. So now let's take a look at Marriott. Marriott lets you rent homes using your destination points, which is their points in their timeshare. And I think this is going to be a growing trend. Right now, I see very high prices. When I look at what I can get, I wouldn't. It doesn't seem to work translating. You have to have a lot of points, and that costs you a lot. So to me, it's not practical for the average person, but I will continue to look back at that because I think that'll be changing over time. What seemed more interesting is Marriott Homes and Villas by Bonvoy. That's the hotel side. It's a growing business, and they have quite a few locations. You have a map, and you can click on the map and drill in and find the place you're looking at. And I found a nice 2-bedroom. Again, I was just looking in San Diego to stay consistent, which was a little over $400 a night, which comes right back to that same $3,000 rate, which might be the going rate even on Airbnb for a week. A month might be a little lower, maybe it's a little higher. It's not clear to me where this is all going. There was a larger list than I saw on Destination Exchange, but that may be just not me not knowing as well. But anyway, it was an interesting option that they're coming out with that as well. And lastly, I have WorldMark / Wyndham. They have a casa, which is kind of interesting. It's a bunch of homes and condos, and they're actually branded a little bit because I've stayed in them, and you actually have shampoo by Vacasa. So they have it's kind of there. It's not necessarily high end. It's some low end. You can book studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, etc., condos and homes. I'm actually going to be staying a week in one of their condos in Kauai, and it really, I booked things almost last minute. It worked out really well. I booked it for a day, but I'm going to book I booked one for a week. I haven't done a home, but it's not as widespread as Airbnb, and there seem to be some services thrown in there, where Airbnb, you don't get the Airbnb shampoo. It's really up to the individual owners. So it's kind of a hybrid that you get. What's fascinating is I have Wyndham Rewards, which is the hotel points on the Wyndham WorldMark. I actually booked all of those using my Wyndham Rewards, so they're effectively free night stay instead of staying in a hotel. And it's it's kind of cool to be able to do that. So that's an added feature that I don't see in Airbnb. Airbnb doesn't have as far as I know, a frequent stayer program. Maybe it's coming, so that if you use it a lot, you get free stays. I don't know how that would be funded, given that everything is, it'd probably have to be added into the fees, so maybe prices would go up. Not clear how that would happen. But to me, that's the closest match to Airbnb from my perspective on the Vacasa. But again, it's not as big as anyone. Anyway, I hope you like this high overview. I will get more detailed examples, but I love the way the industry is going to benefit all of us. And it's great to have a competitor like Airbnb. And again, that would also include VRBO and everyone else.